Friday morning arrived with the subtlety of a freight train. Karen had barely slept, spending the night crafting strongly worded emails and leaving voicemails for every board member. None of them had received the original message, yet somehow half the neighborhood was buzzing with excitement about the generous pool party she was hosting. At 5:47 a.m., Karen's doorbell rang. She stumbled to the door in her silk robe, her usually perfect hair resembling a bird's nest. Through the peephole, she saw a convoy of white vans parked along her street, their sides emblazoned with premier party rentals. "There's been a mistake," she said, opening the door to a cheerful man with a clipboard. "I never ordered any rentals." "Karen Whitmore, 1247 Maple Drive," he asked, consulting his papers. "Says here you've got the deluxe package, tables, chairs, dance floor, DJ booth, and a chocolate fountain." "A chocolate fountain?" Karen's voice cracked. "I don't want a chocolate fountain." "Ma'am, everything's been paid for in advance. We've got your credit card on file ending in 7394. Karen's knees nearly buckled. That was her HOA expense card, the one she used for community purchases. Someone had not only hacked their email system, but had also somehow accessed their financial accounts. "I need to see that receipt," she demanded, but the man was already directing his crew toward her backyard gate. Karen watched in horror as they began unloading what looked like enough equipment to host a small wedding. Her phone rang. It was Margaret, sounding panicked. "Karen, I just got a call from the insurance company. They're asking about additional coverage for today's event." "What event?" "The fake pool party that's apparently really happening," Karen said, watching a crew member struggle with a massive inflatable slide. "Margaret, someone's hijacked our entire HOA system. They're using our accounts, our email, even our insurance. Should I call the police?" Karen was about to say yes when she noticed Jake Morrison's teenage son, Tyler, setting up a professional-looking camera on a tripod across the street. The kid was grinning like he'd won the lottery, adjusting his equipment with practiced ease. "Not yet," Karen said slowly. "I think I'm starting to understand what's happening." She marched across the street, her robe billowing behind her like a battle flag. Tyler looked up nervously as she approached, his hand hovering over his camera. "Interesting hobby you've picked up," Karen said, her voice deadly calm. "Just documenting neighborhood events," Tyler stammered. "For your little YouTube channel? The one where you make fun of HOA rules?" Tyler's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do. Question is, how tech-savvy is your father? Because someone's been very busy with our computer systems." Before Tyler could respond, Karen heard a commotion from her backyard. She turned to see the inflatable slide being inflated, its rainbow colors visible over her fence. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered, some carrying folding chairs and coolers. "Mrs. Whitmore," called out elderly Mrs. Patterson, "this is so wonderful of you. The whole neighborhood's talking about your generosity." Karen forced a smile so tight it hurt. "My pleasure," she managed through gritted teeth. As she walked back to her house, Karen's mind raced. Whoever was behind this had played it perfectly, made her look like the villain if she tried to stop it, but also like a fool for letting it happen. Either way, her reputation as the iron-fisted HOA president was in serious jeopardy. But Karen didn't become HOA president by backing down from a fight. If someone wanted to play games with her, she'd show them exactly why she was the most feared woman in Willowbrook. Karen Whitmore stood in her pristine kitchen, staring at the anonymous email that had just arrived in her inbox. The subject line read, "ORGNT, Emergency HOA Pool Party. Your property required." Her perfectly manicured nails clicked against her granite countertop as she read the message again, her eyes widening with each word. "Due to unexpected maintenance issues at the community pool, the Willowbrook HOA board has selected your property at 1247 Maple Drive for this weekend's mandatory community gathering. Your pool area has been deemed suitable for hosting 150-plus residents. Setup begins Friday at 6 a.m. Karen's mouth fell open. She was the HOA president, for crying out loud. She would have remembered authorizing this, but there it was, sent from the official HOA email address, complete with the board's letterhead and her own electronic signature at the bottom. "This is insane," she muttered, scrolling through the details. The email outlined everything from catering requirements to liability waivers, all supposedly approved by the board. Karen's hands trembled as she realized the implications. Her backyard, her sanctuary, turned into a circus for the very neighbors she'd spent years trying to control. She immediately called her vice president, Margaret Chen. "Margaret, did you approve some ridiculous pool party at my house?" "What pool party?" Margaret's voice was genuinely confused. "Karen, are you feeling all right? Check your email. There's an official HOA message about hosting the community at my property." After a long pause, Margaret said, "I don't see anything like that. Are you sure it's legitimate?" Karen's blood ran cold. Someone was playing games with her, and she had a sinking feeling she knew exactly who. Her neighbor, Jake Morrison, had been feuding with her for months over her increasingly strict HOA rules. Just last week, she'd fined him $500 for leaving his garbage cans out 15 minutes past the designated time. "That little weasel," Karen hissed, hanging up on Margaret. She marched to her home office, her heels clicking like gunshots on the hardwood floors. If Jake thought he could embarrass her with some elaborate prank, he had another thing coming. But as she pulled up the HOA's email system, her confidence wavered. The message was definitely in their sent folder, with all the proper credentials. Either Jake was a computer genius, or something else was happening. Karen's phone buzzed with a text from her neighbor across the street. "Thanks for volunteering your place for the party. Can't wait to see you this weekend." Then another. "So generous of you to open your home to the community." And another. "My kids are so excited about the pool party." Karen's perfectly controlled world was crumbling, and she could hear the distant sound of her reputation shattering like glass. She had exactly 3 days to figure out what was happening, and more importantly, how to make it stop. By noon, Karen's backyard had transformed into something resembling a small music festival. The chocolate fountain gurgled ominously near her prized rose bushes, while children shrieked with delight as they careened down the inflatable slide into her previously pristine pool. The water, which she'd spent a fortune keeping crystal clear, now resembled chocolate milk. Karen stood at her kitchen window, watching the chaos unfold while clutching her third cup of coffee. She changed into her most authoritative outfit, a crisp white blazer and navy slacks, but felt anything but in control. Every few minutes, another neighbor would approach to thank her for her spontaneous generosity, their words dripping with the kind of surprise that suggested they'd never expected such humanity from their infamous HOA president. "Karen, this is amazing," gushed Linda from 2 houses down, sliding open the patio door without permission. "I never knew you had such a fun side." "It's been educational," Karen replied, watching a group of teenagers play volleyball in her pool. One of them was definitely Jake Morrison's daughter, who was supposed to be grounded according to the complaint Karen had filed about the family's lawn maintenance. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Enjoying the party? Check your email." A friend. Karen's blood pressure spiked as she opened her laptop. There in her inbox was another message from the HOA account. This one was even more elaborate. A detailed expense report for the party, complete with receipts and budget allocations. According to the document, she'd personally approved spending $12,000 of HOA funds on community engagement activities. "This is impossible," she whispered, but even as she said it, she noticed something odd. The email timestamp showed it had been sent 3 weeks ago, but she'd never seen it before today. Someone wasn't just hacking their system, they were manipulating their entire digital history. The DJ, a surprisingly professional setup for a neighborhood party, began playing music that was actually good. Karen watched through the window as her neighbors, people she'd spent years keeping at arm's length with rules and regulations, began to laugh and dance together. For a moment, she felt a strange pang of something she couldn't quite identify. "Mrs. Whitmore?" A small voice behind her made her jump. She turned to find Tyler Morrison standing in her kitchen, no longer carrying his camera. "What are you doing in my house?" she snapped. I came to apologize." The teenager looked genuinely distressed. "This has gone way too far." "So you admit it?" You and your father? No, Tyler interrupted. I mean, yes. I've been making videos about the HOA rules, but I didn't do this. I thought my dad did, but when I asked him, he said he thought you'd finally lost it and decided to throw a party. Karen studied the boy's face. Either he was an exceptional actor or he was telling the truth. Then, a crash from the backyard interrupted her thought. Through the window, they could see that someone had accidentally knocked over the chocolate fountain, sending brown liquid cascading across her stone patio. But instead of the chaos she expected, the neighbors were already working together to clean it up, laughing about the mishap. You know, Tyler said quietly, I've been filming people's reactions today. They're all saying the same thing. They never realized how nice it could be to actually get together as a community. Karen watched Mrs. Patterson, who was 93 and usually complained about everything, teaching a group of children how to play an old card game. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, who'd been feuding with the Johnsons about property lines for months, were sharing a plate of food and actually smiling. This is what we could have had all along, Tyler continued. Instead of everyone being afraid of getting fined or reported, we could have just been neighbors. Karen's throat tightened. She'd become HOA president to maintain order, to protect property values, to keep everything perfect. But looking at her backyard now, filled with genuine community spirit, she wondered if she'd been protecting the wrong things. Her phone rang. It was her lawyer, David Brennan. Karen, I've been getting some very interesting calls about your HOA's recent activities. We need to talk. David stepped forward with another set of documents. Margaret Chen, you're being served with a lawsuit for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit will be in touch about the money laundering charges. As Margaret was led away, still protesting her innocence, Karen found herself alone with the neighbors she'd spent years trying to control. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Mrs. Patterson spoke up. So, does this mean the chocolate fountain is staying? Karen looked at the ridiculous, messy, wonderful disaster that was her backyard and started to laugh. You know what? I think it might. As the evening wound down and her neighbors began to leave, many stopped to thank her, not for the party, but for finally showing them who she really was underneath all the rules and regulations. Karen stood in her chocolate-stained backyard, watching Tyler Morrison help elderly Mr. Peterson carry his chair to the car, and realized that maybe getting framed for embezzlement was the best thing that had ever happened to her. But as she picked up the last of the paper plates, she found a note tucked under her patio table. Well played, Karen. But this game isn't over yet. A friend. Karen looked around her empty yard, then at the note in her hand. Margaret was in custody, but the handwriting wasn't Margaret's. Someone else had been pulling strings, and they weren't finished with her yet. She crumpled the note and headed inside, already planning her next move. After all, she hadn't survived 3 years as HOA president by backing down from a fight. And this fight was just getting started. David Brennan's voice was grim. Karen, someone's been using your HOA credentials to make some very expensive purchases. And that's not even the worst part. Karen pressed the phone tighter to her ear, trying to block out the sounds of her neighbors enjoying themselves in her backyard. What do you mean? I mean someone's filed a lawsuit against you personally. Claims you've been embezzling HOA funds and using your position to harass residents. The party today. According to the legal documents, it's your attempt to buy goodwill before the case goes public. Karen's legs gave out, and she slumped into her kitchen chair. That's insane. I've never embezzled anything. Every transaction goes through the board. Except according to your digital records, it doesn't. I'm looking at months of expenses that show you've been making unilateral decisions, using community funds for personal purchases. The chocolate fountain rental. Apparently, it's the 3rd one you've ordered this year. David, I hate chocolate fountains. Ask anyone. I believe you, but the evidence is overwhelming. Someone's been building a case against you for months, maybe longer. They've been patient, methodical, and very, very smart. Karen's mind raced back through the past year. The increasing complaints about her leadership style, the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room, the way Margaret had been acting strangely during board meetings, always pushing for more digital record keeping. Margaret, she breathed. What about Margaret? She's been pushing for us to go paperless. Said it would be more efficient. She's the one who set up our new email system, our digital payment processing, everything. Karen's voice grew stronger as the pieces clicked into place. She's been vice president for 3 years, always in my shadow. She knows every resident's complaints, every weakness in our system. Karen, are you saying? I'm saying Margaret Chen is about to become the most popular HOA president in Willowbrook history by destroying me first. Through her window, Karen could see Margaret arriving at the party, carrying a tray of her famous dumplings. The neighbors flocked to her, praising her for helping organize such a wonderful event. Margaret smiled humbly, playing the perfect supportive vice president. Karen's phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Board meeting Monday. Motion to remove you from office. Enjoy your last party. A friend. But this time, Karen recognized something in the phrasing. Margaret always signed her emails with best regards, your friend in community service. It was a small thing, but Karen had seen it hundreds of times. David, I need you to do something for me. Check Margaret Chen's financial records. I have a feeling we're going to find some very interesting discrepancies. Karen, I can't just. She's been embezzling, David. I'm sure of it. And she's been setting me up to take the fall. Karen stood up, her resolve hardening. Someone's been very clever, but they made one mistake. They threw me a party, and for the first time in years, I'm remembering why I wanted to help this community in the first place. Outside, she could see Tyler Morrison talking to Margaret, his camera once again in hand. But this time, he was being subtle about it, keeping it low, and pointed in Margaret's direction. Karen smiled for the first time all day. Maybe she wasn't the only one who'd figured out what was really happening. David, I need you to get down here. We're going to need evidence, and I have a feeling we're about to get some very interesting footage. As she hung up, Karen heard Margaret's voice through the window, loud and clear. Oh, Karen's been under so much stress lately. We've all been worried about her judgment. The game was far from over. The party was winding down when Karen made her move. She'd spent the last hour watching Margaret work the crowd, painting herself as the concerned friend worried about Karen's recent erratic behavior. It was a masterful performance, but Karen had learned a few things about manipulation during her years as HOA president. She stepped onto her patio, and the conversations gradually quieted. The neighbors who'd been laughing and celebrating suddenly looked awkward, as if they'd been caught enjoying themselves in the home of their notorious leader. I want to thank everyone for coming, Karen began, her voice carrying across the yard. This has been enlightening. Margaret stepped forward, her expression perfectly crafted with concern. Karen, we should probably start cleaning up. You look exhausted. Do I? Karen smiled. Actually, I feel more awake than I have in months. David? Her lawyer emerged from the house, carrying a folder thick with documents. Several neighbors shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the legal implications of his presence. Margaret, I have some questions about our HOA finances, Karen continued, specifically about a series of transactions that seem to have been authorized without board approval. Karen, this isn't the time or place. Actually, it's the perfect time, since so many community members are here. Karen opened the folder David had handed her. For instance, last month's emergency landscaping fund of $8,000, the one that was supposedly approved by unanimous board vote. Margaret's face remained calm, but Karen noticed her hands clench slightly. I remember that vote. You were very passionate about improving our common areas. Except I was in Florida visiting my sister that week. The vote was recorded while I was 1,200 miles away. Karen's voice grew stronger. And the landscaping company that received the payment, it doesn't exist. The money was transferred to a personal account. A murmur ran through the crowd. Margaret's smile faltered for just a moment. Karen, you're obviously confused. The stress of leadership. The stress of being framed, you mean? Karen turned to address the gathered neighbors. For months, Margaret's been building a case against me. Fake emails, manipulated financial records, even today's party, all designed to make me look incompetent and corrupt. That's ridiculous, Margaret said, but her voice was less steady now. Karen, you're having some kind of breakdown. Tyler? Karen called out. The teenager stepped forward, his camera visible in his hands. Would you mind playing back that conversation you recorded about 20 minutes ago? Tyler looked nervous but pressed play on his device. Margaret's voice rang out clearly. The old bat finally lost it completely. After Monday's meeting, I'll be running things properly. No more power trips, no more arbitrary fines. Just me, managing this community the way it should be managed. The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret's face went from concern to trapped in the span of seconds. The beautiful thing about your plan, Karen continued, is that it almost worked. You've been patient, methodical, and very, very smart. But you made one crucial mistake. What's that? Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. You assumed I was too proud to learn from my mistakes. Karen gestured to the neighbors around them. This party, this community gathering you orchestrated to humiliate me. It showed me something I'd forgotten. These people aren't just property values to protect. They're my neighbors. And maybe, just maybe, they deserve a leader who remembers that. Margaret's facade finally cracked. You have no idea what it's like, working in your shadow for 3 years. Every decision, every rule, every fine, it all came from you. I did the work, and you took the credit. So you decided to take it all, Karen said quietly. The money, the position, the respect. But you know what? You're right about one thing. I have been a terrible leader. I've been so focused on rules and regulations that I forgot why we have a community in the first place.